Grace and peace, everybody. Happy Friday. And good morning to all of y'all who are tuning in to the morning show. Thank you guys for showing up, as always, especially those who support the channel. Listen, I love when my supporters show up. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And y'all already know, as we come in, hit that like button, subscribe button, notifications bell, all of that good stuff. So when I get ready to do shows like this, and when I'm going live, when I'm uploading videos, all of that, you'll get a notification. All right, listen, I'm going to try to make this intro quick because I'm going to be covering a segment of Allie Beth Stuckey's, one of her latest videos. She was addressing Pastor Eric Mace, and I think she's kind of addressing Damon Richardson in this as well, if I remember. But I think it's more so towards Pastor Eric Mason. And you remember they had a panel discussion and they invited Corey Minor on there. And she's going to mention Corey Minor as well. So, so we're going to see what that's all about. But now, if you guys remember, I did a show on this. I want to say maybe this was episode 2 or 3. And if you don't remember, Allie Beth Stuckey had a lady on. I think her name was Melissa Doherty. And this lady that she had on, she used to be a mystic. And she was into like Reiki and crystals and all of that stuff. And then she ended up giving her life to Christ. And now she's writing books. And I think she has her own podcast. And she goes around doing interviews warning Christians about some of the practices that Christians have adopted and brought into the church that kind of goes back to like mysticism and Reiki and witchcraft and all of that stuff. So anyway, at the end of the segment of that show where she had Melissa Doherty on, they got into discussing the Black church. So the topic came up, and I think that Allie Beth Stuckey asked a question. She says, why do you think that when it comes to prosperity teachers and preaching, why do you think that it is prevalent in churches that are majority Black? Not majority of Black churches, but churches that have majority Black people in it. So why does it seem like that there's so many of these type of churches that are so willing to accept the prosperity gospel, health, wealth, prosperity, name it and claim it, blab it and grab it, all of those things, because they were kind of tying in a lot of those practices with witchcraft and Eastern mysticism, saying that this is kind of the same, this kind of goes along the same lines of those practices that have kind of been brought into the church. Now, y'all know I covered that in that video. And if you guys haven't seen it, go back and watch it, which I'm pretty sure some of y'all, you're probably not going to do it anyway. But anyway, I just want to say, if you guys are interested, you can go back and watch that. But she got a lot of backlash from that, her and Melissa Doherty, because apparently, and like I said, even in that video, white people, according to some people, are not allowed to talk about issues that are concerning things that happen in the Black church. Now, I did explain in that video what is meant by Black churches and why we have a Black church, all of that stuff. So I kind of broke all of that stuff down in that last video. So again, for those who are interested in watching it or interested in what my take is on that, you kind of go back and watch it. And it'll probably be at the end of this video, when all of the recommended videos and stuff come up. It'll probably be one of those videos. Actually, I'll make sure that it's one of those videos at the end of this. All right. So Allie Beth Stuckey has clapped back. All right. So she done clapped back. And she naming names, dropping names, and taking answers. How does that go? I don't know. Y'all know me. She's kicking butt and taking names. However that goes. But anyway, she's naming names, and she got some choice words for a lot of the people, especially the Black people who had a problem with her take on the things that are happening within the Black church. All right. So, as we get ready to get into this, y'all already know what segment this is because we are going to be, let me get ready to set it up. Set it up. We are going to be getting ready to get into our segment, and this whole episode is going to be about cooning without it. All right, so let's get ready to get into this. And I think that this clip is maybe about, if I'm not mistaken, let me see if I can pull this up and go ahead and add this to the screen. Let me see. I think this segment starts at like the 23-minute mark. So it's about a good 20 minutes. But by the time I get finished, give my own commentary and my reaction to it, we'll probably end up being here for about an hour, which is about how long I want to have this episode anyway. Because even when it comes to my morning shows, I don't want to just be boring y'all with no more than an hour and a half worth of content. I want to keep it between an hour and an hour and a half. So hopefully with me doing this reaction video to Allie Beth Stuckey, I can keep it within that time frame. And I want to know from you guys, as we're going through this, do she actually have a point? Or is she just totally off? She's just totally disqualified and, nobody should take her seriously. Now, y'all can go ahead and leave that in the chat section. And again, I know I'm not live, but a lot of times I do, if I'm available, I do interact with you guys in the chat. And sometimes I do bring up a poll. So hopefully I'll be able to bring up a poll and maybe ask the question, something like, is Allie Beth Stuckey, does she really have a point? Or should she just kind of keep to herself or whatever, But all right, anyway, enough of my babble. Let's go ahead and let's get ready to get into this video. And I'm going to set this at 1.25 speed so we can kind of, get through it a little bit, fast. And let's get into this fair use. And let's see what Allie Beth Stuckey has to say.
So a few weeks ago, I had Melissa Doherty on the show to talk about her new book. I actually have it right here still, so I'll promote it again. Happy Lies, How a Movement You Probably Never Heard of Shaped Our Self-Obsessed World. So we talked about the new age and new thought, also how the prosperity gospel fits into that. We talked about the usual suspects, purveyors of the prosperity gospel that I've talked about many, many times on this show. Joel Osteen, Kenneth Copeland, Paula White, so many. You guys, if you've been following me for any amount of time, I talk a good bit about the prosperity gospel. I wrote about it extensively in my first book.
If I'm not mistaken, I think she leans Reformed. But I may have to check that out. And just to be accurate. But I think she leans kind of Reform. I don't think that she really expresses it too much, but I think that's kind of her leaning.
And also how it intersects with the new age. That is part of what my first book is about too. You're not enough, and that's okay. And I talked about how people like even Glennon Doyle and Rachel Hollis, these cult of self-affirmation leaders who tell us to worship the God of self, how those are really intertwined. So that was part of our discussion, but we had one short segment of the discussion where I dared to ask a question about majority Black churches, not the majority of Black churches, but majority Black churches. Here's that one. This seems to be especially prevalent in majority Black churches. There's a lot of prosperity preaching, but a lot of, as you're talking, I'm like, I've heard that a lot. You are divine. You are a queen.
Yeah.
You are, a goddess, something special. And
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever talked about the roots of that or why that is.
It's interesting you bring that up. That is a controversial question, especially today's political climate. But I guarantee there's a lot of people watching that are like, Allie's not wrong.
Yeah.
There's something there. And I was reading Kate Bowler's book. Do you know who?
Now I want to know. Now, again, we covered this in one of my previous episodes. This the same clip right here. All right, so we did cover this, but I want to know from you guys right now, after watching that clip, for those who've seen it, type of one, if you believe that Allie Beth Stuckey was not wrong, she was correct in her assessment with a lot of the prosperity stuff being in majority Black churches, not the majority of Black churches, but churches that are majority Black. Type of two, if you disagree that she was off and maybe she should have just, stayed in her lane and not had anything to say about it, in the first place. All right, let's keep it going.
Yeah. And there's a whole section on this that she talks about with the Black church and the prosperity gospel and all these other theologies that kind of entered into the Black church. I mean, Carlton Pearson is one of them. Carlton Pearson was a Pentecostal Word of Faith preacher, Reverend Ike. And both of them were very off when it came to a lot of their teachings. That's like an origin there in that regard. I haven't looked too much into it, but you're not wrong.
Okay. So I had no idea that was going to cause any controversy. I started getting some random messages on Instagram, though, from people who didn't follow me, maybe a week or so after that episode came out, saying, basically, where do you get off on saying that the prosperity gospel is in the majority of Black churches? That's what I kept hearing, that you said the majority of Black churches preach the prosperity gospel, which is not what I said, but I just ignored it. I didn't think anything of it, but I did. Usually when that happens, when I keep getting the same almost verbatim message over and over again from people who don't follow me, it means that someone fairly influential posted something about something I said, and that's going around, and that's causing people to message me, to find my page and message me about it. So I knew that was a possibility, but I didn't look into it. And then I kept getting messages about it. And then Melissa Doherty sent me a message saying, that our little segment has really caused a scuffle. Like, if people are upset about this. And I didn't know.
And here's the thing, and one of the things that I did want to touch on is I don't understand why that caused such a great stir. Me personally, I just don't understand that. Because I'm like, hey man, listen, I mean, these are some things that we have to talk about as the body of Christ. These things are affecting those who are made in the image of God and those who claim that they are Christians and that they are following Christ. And we can clearly see, like with the prosperity gospel, with a lot of junk and trash that have gone into the church, we know that it's a problem. Especially when I was dealing with a lot of those Egyptomaniacs. Shout out to Brother Garfield for that term. The conscious people like Umar Johnson. These people would say stuff like, "Oh man, you shouldn't have." the church has kind of like messed our minds up, and the church is the reason why we having all of these issues and all of these crazy things, and they always attribute it back to the stuff that we see that's happening in the church. The name and claim it, blab it and grab it. People saying that your season is coming, and then they're just like, man, I was in church for 25, 30 years. Some people even say 40 years. And I heard that all my life. And, nothing happened. Nothing manifested. I got sick. I lost my job, all of these things. And once I started following this other stuff and I started realizing how the white man gave us this Bible, and y'all already know all of the talking points. It seems like that this is a legitimate concern within the body of Christ, not just for Black people, but white people as well. And just like Allie Beth Stuckey said earlier, that she's criticized people like Kenneth Copeland and Joel Osteen and Paula White. All three of these people are white people. So, and I think she's going to kind of get into that. So I kind of don't want to get ahead of myself. So, but yeah, but me holding this take is one of those takes that has gotten me labeled a coon.
Coon chip will activate. It only takes a little bit of white brainwash to activate the coon chip in the average Negro.
So whenever a person such as myself, it's like, okay, I understand that this is a problem. I think that we need to talk about it and we need to address it. It seems like that let's just say not just me, all right? Because already I don't really get called too much of a coon and an Uncle Tom and a Sambo for addressing a lot of problems that's going on in the Black church. They kind of allude to it. But I have had people call me names. And then I ask the question, is this not a legitimate problem in the church? And I say, no, it is. But it's just the way that you say it. It's the tone in your message. And I'm like, we're trying to sound the alarm on a lot of this foolishness that's happening in the church. Well, how come you don't say you addressing the foolishness in the white church? And I'm just like, I'm like, bro, I've talked about Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland and a lot of these people because they're all, to me, they're all on the same level. They're all saying the same old thing. But I mean, when you're a white person and you have these similar talking points, then it's like that's almost like taboo and forbidden. And it's like if we're all supposed to be brothers and sisters in the faith, then why is that? Why is that even a thing that is taboo? Anyway, let's get back to it because she has a lot to say, and she has a lot that we're gonna be addressing. All right, fair use.
Know where it started. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, I bet I know exactly who said something about it. So I went to this person's page and I was immediately verified. This was on X. I actually originally saw it on Facebook, but this is Pastor Eric Mason. Now, some of you might know him from his really good work on fatherhood, and he's got some other really good like theological resources that he's written over the years, but he's also the author of Woke Church, and we'll get into that a little bit in a second. He's pastor of Epiphany Fellowship Church in Philadelphia, and here's his post. I just watched a clip with two white women saying that the majority of Black churches are prosperity churches and theologically unsound. Didn't say that. A Black YouTuber, he's talking about someone named Corey Minor, and I'll get to his video in a second. A Black YouTuber that mainly posts critique videos agrees. What are your
She don't talk about Corey Minor. So it seems like she been doing her homework. Now shout out to Corey. That's my guy. I hope he's watching. I should tag Corey. I think I'm gonna tag Corey in this. I think when I get ready to upload this, I'm gonna go ahead and tag Corey. Might send him a quick text message. I say, hey brother, I think you need to check this out. But no, Corey, he probably already seen it. He's probably like, oh yeah, brother, I already seen that. You know. So now if he already seen it, but if he hasn't seen it, he takes my advice and he goes and sees it. I'm hoping that he does take my advice on let the hair grow out.
Bruh.
How many of y'all think that Corey should just go ahead and just let this grow out? Or if it's kind of spotty, he just need to go ahead and just get a man unit, right? Let's go ahead and get Corey a man unit and fade that in on the side and, maybe grow like a little goatee. He got a little thin mustache, trying to look young. So, he need to go ahead and just, embrace some grays like me. Anyway, let's get back to it.
your thoughts? Also, give a list of biblically solid Black churches and pastors below. Video response coming soon. If you do an etymology of the prosperity movements, which Preach Damon, that's handled, did in our book on urban apologetics, you'd see that it began and was spread by whites for the last 100 years. This type of stuff makes me angry. Y'all pray for me because I get in the flesh and want to say unwholesome things. Yikes. What does that mean? What unwholesome things? I'm also kind of just like, this is an aside, I'm stuck on do an etymology. Do an etymology. That's like saying like do a philosophy. Etymology means like the study of a word, and you can study the etymology of a word. Like you could study the philosophy behind an idea, but I don't know what do an etymology means. That's just an aside.
I told you, man, she was gonna be licking off shots in this episode, man. Yeah, but Pastor Eric Mason, let me go ahead and see if I can put me back on screen. I do have one of his books. Is it up here or is it in my room? I think I got it here. Where is it? I don't think I can find it. It's up here somewhere. It is Urban Apologetics. I don't know where that book is. I thought I had it back here. Anyway, here it is. It's right here. So, Urban Apologetics. And actually, my wife, shout out to the wife. I think she bought this for me like on my birthday or Father's Day or something like that. But she did give me that book, Urban Apologetics, and I read through it. I haven't read all of it, but I have read through some of it, and there's some pretty good material in there. All right, so some pretty good material, and and Pastor Eric Mason, he's not a dumb guy. He's actually a very intelligent guy, but I think that he has some blinders, when it comes to this, racial stuff. And I really didn't start seeing a lot of these things come out until after Donald Trump got elected in 2016. That's when I really started to see kind of a shift, because I was somewhat following him and Damon Richardson around that time. And then it's like once Trump got elected, it was like, a total 180, was done. And after that, everybody who was like John MacArthur, James White, Jeff Durbin, Paul Washer, all of these guys were now suddenly racist. You see what I'm saying? And that's what kind of like threw me for a loop, because I'm like, well, wait, hold on. Y'all were just kind of bigging these guys up like 2 days ago, but then the election happens and all of a sudden all of these people are racist now. And I'm just like, I didn't understand it. Excuse me. I really didn't understand it. All right, let's get back to it.
So Eric Mason, he made this video with a couple of guys responding to what we said. His video was titled Emergency Episode, Are Majority Black Churches Preaching the Prosperity Gospel? He said, let me preface this by saying a few things. First of all, this is not a witch hunt. Second of all, this is not being divisive. He also says, I talked to Melissa. We had a pretty lengthy 45-minute discussion. She was pretty broken about the comment and repented for it and wanted to make things right with me. And then they go on to say, no, that this claim or this question that I had was completely untrue, that my observation and concern was completely unfounded. It's not true. Whatever. I don't think it's a witch hunt. Like, first of all, I'll say Eric Mason can make whatever content he wants. He can respond to things I put out there. There are some people out there who would say anyone who disagrees with something they say publicly is being attacked. I'm not that person. I don't feel attacked by people publicly disagreeing with things that I publicly say. People have a right to do that, and I can actually appreciate it when it's done in a respectful way. When he says this is not divisive, well, by pointing out the color of our skin, that is divisive. I mean, saying that the melanin count of the people who said it is what makes it part of what makes it controversial. Yeah, I mean, that is, you're purposely trying to draw lines there. Whereas,
yeah, and that's, and to be honest, that's fair. I mean, to be like, oh well, there's two white ladies who did a critique of something that happened in a black church, and they was walking around here saying that the black church, majority of them are unintelligent, this, that, and the third. And I understand where Pastor Mason's coming from, but I'm not gonna lie, he really did himself a disservice with that tweet. All right. And this type of stuff is what I've always critiqued him on over the years, because I remember when he was tweeting and writing all of these messages about James White and calling him a white supremacist and all of this type of stuff. James White actually, and this is what made me lose respect for Pastor Mace. And like I said, I had a lot of respect for him before this stuff started to kind of snowball and turn into something way bigger than what it was. Because him and guys like the BD and Abuile, and actually, where's this book? Here we go. I was reading this book too, because I went to the G3 conference back in 2017. And I bought this book. I don't know. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull this up on the screen. All right. So it's called Reviving the Black Church. All right. So it's called Reviving the Black Church. This is from the BD and Abuile, because I thought that this was going to be an interesting read. Because I still had some, still had a little bit of black power left. You know what I'm saying? And I'm black, y'all. And I'm blacker than black. And I'm black, so I was like, let me go ahead and see what these guys' take is on, the black church, and kind of get a history behind it, to know how did the church get to this point, and how did these predominantly black churches, how can they get back to effectively spreading the gospel and, being that pillar for the community like it once was. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I was like, I really had a lot of respect for people like Eric Mason and the Beatty and Damon Richardson and all that. Like I said, right after the 2016 election, it just flipped the script. But anyway, Pastor Mace had been writing tweets about James White, and I was kind of in the middle because I was like, I want to see where he's going with this, because he might be saying some stuff that may be legit, and I may have some blinders on. So let me pay close attention to what's happening. So anyway, James White was engaging with him, and James White actually reached out to him and Thabiti. I don't know about Damon Richardson, but I know those two he had reached out to. Even Vodi Bakum had reached out to Eric Mason, because Eric Mason and Vodi Bakum both went to Dallas. Well, they both graduated from Dallas Theological Seminary. All right, so they both came from that. So they both had mutual friends and mutual contacts and stuff that can easily get in contact with each other. So Vodi Bakum and James White, they both reached out to the man and said, hey, listen, let's just have a conversation to see what's going on. And James White even said it himself. He said, maybe I got some blinders on. Maybe I didn't realize I was going to church with a bunch of racists. And he wasn't being condescending, but he said, but hey, sometimes, we can have these blinders on and we may not see things. And what did Mace do? He ended up blocking James White. Blocked him on Twitter. Well, back when it was Twitter, before it became X. But he blocked him. And that just really made me lose a lot of respect for Eric Mason at that time. And I think that even Damon Richardson had done a video or a live stream that I saw where he said that some of those people wanted to reach out and talk to him. And he was like, I ain't going to be talking to none of them. For what? What do I need to talk to them for? And I'm like, if you're really saying that these guys are white supremacists, or that they are harboring white supremacy and all of this stuff here, then why not sit down and have a conversation? I mean, expose the white supremacy, because that's what I was looking for. I'm like, hey, listen, if there's some white supremacy going on, hey man, let's get this out in the open. But they failed to show and prove, and that's what made me be like, you know what? I don't know what's going on here, but I don't think that it's a good look. Not for the body of Christ, and I don't think that it's a good look for these guys as churches and their ministries.
I, despite what some of my critics are saying, have talked about the prosperity gospel in all different kinds of churches, led by all different kinds of teachers. A response that I keep hearing, and that he said himself, is that, what about this white teacher? What about that white teacher? Yeah, 99.9% of the time that I am talking about the prosperity gospel, I am talking about pastors who happen to be white. Just take 2 seconds to look at my repertoire of content that I've put out. Most of the people, including Andy Stanley, including pastors that I really like, I'm not afraid to talk about the controversies that they have gotten themselves into. I really like Alistair Begg. I really liked Stephen Lawson and John Piper. All of these people, I've just kind of talked in a hopefully very respectful way about my disagreements with them. But yeah, 99.9% of the time, these people happen to be white. And yet, because I asked one question, I am being told that I singled out the Black church. And this was people are saying this is a racist observation. Now, just to give you a little bit of context about who Eric Mason is, he did write this book called Woke Church. This full screen picture right here is from that book. I don't disagree with everything within the book. I think we agree on the fundamentals of the faith, hopefully. But I do just want to point out from this full screen that's in the book, what he considers in bad categories of theology or beliefs as a Black person. He considers bad this statement: I view color blindness as a virtue. I don't think that systemic racism exists any longer. I believe Blacks are to blame for our current condition. Those are all statements that he believes that if you believe those things as a Black person, that you're not fully awake, that you are blind in some way, that you are
All right, got a question. I want to see if I can pull that back just a little bit. Just to see who agrees with some of the stuff that was being said at that moment. Hold on, let me see. I'm trying to see where she was reading from.
believe those things as a Black person. I believe Blacks are to blame for our current color blindness as a virtue. He considers in bad categories of theology or beliefs as a Black person. He considers bad.
Okay. All right.
Add this statement. I view color blindness as a virtue.
Okay, so I'm trying to see where's she reading that at. Let me see. Huh. I'm trying to see where she's reading at. I believe color blindness is a virtue.
I don't think that systemic racism exists any longer. I believe blacks are to blame for our current condition. Those are all statements that he
Okay, so this is probably, and I'm not going to spend so much time going through all of this, but yeah, you can kind of see he kind of has this these little overlapping circles, and then he got like woke to white perception, woke to black perception, woke to black self perception. Like for instance, I guess this would what kind of, I guess, I don't know. Let's read the woke to black self perception. The first point says most whites with suspicion. Oh, I'm sorry. I view most whites with suspicion. I believe Christianity is the white man's religion. I want to be separate from all white institutions. I find my significance, dignity, and identity in my African heritage. I believe blacks need nationality beyond American citizenship. I'm likely to be involved in black mystery religions ideologies or black atheism. So I guess that's what a woke black person would be according to this diagram here. Let me see. Woke to white perception. And he only has 1 point for woke to white perception, which says my sense of self, my sense of self is defined by how the white world perceives me. What the heck does that mean? So I guess gospel wokeness and woke to white perception. So I guess gospel wokeness, according to the circle that's here at the bottom, is I believe we should just preach the gospel. I don't believe the gospel promotes social engagement. I believe the gospel, but I don't believe it speaks to racism and injustice. I view color blindness as a virtue. Okay, so that's the one that she was reading right here, the gospel wokeness. I view color blindness as a virtue. And to me, I just think that it's kind of like these little straw man statements. So I guess a white person woke the woke to white perception and where the gospel wokeness overlaps. I guess these points would be as follows. I see myself through the lens of the white Christian world. I don't think that systemic racism exists any longer. I believe blacks are to blame for our current condition. My theology has been developed solely in white spheres. I seek white approval for my significance, dignity, and identity. I measure other blacks by white cultural standards. It's just like, I don't know of anyone who speaks like that. If I got to be honest. Now I know that even with the whole Christian nationalism thing, y'all know that I've touched on that. All right. Now there are some extremely racist white Christian nationalists out there. I've done 2 videos about that. All right. So let's not play any games like my blinders are on and I don't see any of that. I've actually had a couple of people unsubscribe and stop supporting the channel because I was speaking against Christian nationalism. So there's some people who don't come back to this channel because I called that out. That seems to happen on my channel a lot. Like when I was talking about foolishness in the black church, I had people unsubscribing for that. Then I started talking about black Hebrew Israelites. People started unsubscribing for that. Then when I started talking about this woke church stuff, people started unsubscribing. And, I'm talking about Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy. People don't want to support. I just make everybody mad, y'all. I just make everybody mad, But shout out to y'all who still staying here. You still feel the spirit moving. But but back to this. I really think that this is like a really gross misrepresentation of how people who are in these spaces think. Now, I mean, some of these points I can say, okay, yeah, maybe that's how some people think, but not to make this diagram and to kind of perpetuate it that people who have these ideologies or people who may agree with some of these points that they accept all of these ideologies. You know, some of the stuff, it just seems like that it's just really fabricated and it's just kind of made up um to perpetuate or to push a narrative. So, like for instance, and I'm gonna move on from this too, because we're already about 35 minutes into this, and I don't want to take up too much time. So at the end, so at the middle of this diagram is the cross, and I guess that will represent Christ, or that will represent what Christians should or what Christians believe in. So the column that represents that cross in the middle, these are the points. It says, I believe that the gospel changes our souls and circumstances. Okay. I believe that many American Christians are culturally captive to their political identities, but that right there can be very subjective. Very subjective. Because a lot of, listen, majority of the people that I've met, and yes, you do have some people who are cultural Christians. They're American cultural Christians. They believe that just because they were born in America, that somehow automatically makes them Christian, just like people who are born in the Middle East, it automatically makes them Muslim or anything like that. But majority of the Christians that I've met who are very serious about this, those who are very serious about this, they don't care anything about no American politics. Now they pay attention to it, but they don't let that shape their Christian identity. A vast majority, and this is where, again, this is why I always tell people, you gotta be discerning. And it seems like we have gotten so lazy as Christians, especially here in America, to where we feel like that we don't need to discern anything. All we need to do is turn on cameras and just start yapping and gapping away based on what we feel at the moment. Like we don't never take time to sit back and say, okay, is what this other person's saying valid? Does this person have a point? Can I put myself in their shoes and then view what they're saying and come to a coherent conclusion? It's just like, nope. They said something that I don't agree with. I feel a certain way. Now I got to get this off my chest. All right, let's finish up some of these points. It says, I am unapologetically black and unashamedly Christian. All right, so I guess this would. So I guess what he's saying in this column that is pointing to the cross, this would represent the ideologies or the feelings of the black Christian. So as a black Christian, for all of those who are black and Christian, I guess this is supposed to be your ideology that supposedly aligns with the gospel. All right. So again, let's go back over that one point. It says, I'm unapologetically black and unashamedly Christian. Like you have to apologize for your blackness at some point. I don't get that. I don't think that anybody is asking us to apologize for being for being black. And I've actually heard Dr. Umar Johnson kind of use that same talking point. You know, like you got to be, unapologetically black.
Coon chip will activate. It only takes a little bit of white brainwash to activate the coon chip in the average Negro.
So I don't know. A lot more could be said, but let me just keep it pushing. I am willing to work on reconciling with whites. Huh?
Bruh.
What does that mean? I am willing to work on reconciling with. I didn't know that there was a division between black Christians and white Christians. My spiritual identity is found in Jesus. Okay, all right, I agree with that. My physical identity and features are created and valued by God. All right, I kind of agree with that. I don't have to become another ethnicity to be valued. All right, okay, talking good, talking good. I believe blacks need to create institutions. Yeah. I now here's the thing. I don't disagree with that. I do believe that there are some things that are unique to the black community that only black people can understand and only black people know how to approach and bring some type of repair to those things, especially concerning the black community. We can relate to each other. You see what I'm saying? So if I go into a black neighborhood or a neighborhood that is predominantly black and I see a lot of issues happening in that area, and with me being black and maybe have lived in areas like that growing up and interacting with people in those areas, I kind of know how they think and the things that are more important to them, things that they want to see, versus a person who may have never lived in the hood, may have never had that much interaction with black people to try to come in and fix the community. You see what I'm saying? So I do believe that we should have institutions, but however, I think that as black Christians, we need to be careful of what quote unquote black institutions that we are aligning ourselves with. Because I've had some conversations with some guys in the background with some people, and I had a really, really deep discussion with a Christian brother one time where I reached out to him and I asked him, and I said, hey man, listen, I'm here in Atlanta. I've been approached by a couple of these black institutions, and I'm thinking about maybe joining one because I do want to see some some change happen in the black community. And me being a part of these institutions, I can kind of bring a Christian perspective. And he told me straight up, he said, hey man, you may want to be careful with that because a lot of these quote unquote black institutions, they push a lot of stuff that's antithetical um to the black community, stuff like abortion, and they're aligned with a lot of radical leftist ideologies from the Democratic Party. And some of these people, they getting money, you know, from a lot of these Democratic operatives. You see what I'm saying? So he's just like, some you got to be careful with that. And some of them, they don't hold to the same Christian values that we do. Totally changed my perspective, and I totally did a 180 and said, you know what? You're totally right about that. You're totally right. What's the next one? I am not colorblind. Now, hold on. Hold on. Now, this is where he kind of. This is where he kind of contradicted himself, because in this column that's pointing to the cross, it says, "I'm not colorblind," but the gospel wokeness, I guess, which is supposed to be a bad thing, says, "I view color blindness as a virtue." Bruh. So, if the black person can say, and this is the column right here to the left that's pointed to the cross. I guess this is where black Christians are supposed to be. So in that column says, I am not colorblind. But this part down here, the gospel wokeness, it says, I view color blindness as a virtue. So is color blindness not a virtue? Because if it's good for black people, oh no, I'm sorry. Hold on, my mistake. All right, so see, I almost played myself. I almost played myself. I got to give myself this. Got to give myself the Mario. All right, got to back that up. All right, so okay, so scratch all of that. All right, so in the column that's pointing to the cross, it says, I am not colorblind. So I guess what he's saying is that, we see color, right? So we all do see color. That's I mean, that's just how it is. We do recognize that there are people with different backgrounds and ethnicities, and we do things differently. I'm totally different. My background is totally different from somebody who is Hispanic versus somebody who is Asian versus somebody who is Indian. Even at times, a person who is from Africa, they may be the same skin color as me, but we have a different background. And of course, my background will be different from the average white person. But I don't think that white people are walking around saying that, oh, well, I'm just colorblind, and now I can prop myself up like, oh, well, I'm colorblind, so therefore that's a virtuous thing. I mean, for a person to say that, hey, I'm colorblind, they're basically saying that I'm not going to prejudge or predetermine your actions or who you are based on the color of your skin, especially when it comes to the gospel. When it comes to the gospel, yeah, we better be colorblind. So, that little bullet point, I don't know. That's kind of sketchy to me. Two more points. It says, I believe that Christian history needs to be redeemed from white revisionists. But people have already been fighting for that. I don't understand that. It's like, people want to make it seem like, or I would say people who think like Pastor Mason want to make it seem like that the white Christian then came in and just totally gave. It's almost like the same talking points with the conscious community. They kind of use the same exact talking points. The white man that came in and gave us a version of this book, a white version of this. So therefore, we need to take back the whitewashed version of Christianity and talk about all of the aspects of Christianity. And it's like, people have been doing that over the decades. And then the last point, and I'm going to move on, fight for unity in the church. And that's something that all Christians, real Christians, are trying to do anyway.
Believes that if you believe those things as a Black person, that you're not fully awake, that you are blind in some way, that you are asleep in some way, you're not fully woke to what the true gospel intersecting with Black identity really is. And obviously that's problematic. There are Christians who are fully awake to the reality of the world and reality of the gospel, who view colorblindness as a virtue, who don't think systemic racism exists any longer. And they might believe that Black people actually have agency.
Question. I know this is probably going to split the room. Does systemic racism still exist today? Does systemic racism still exist today? Are you, as a Black person, are you still being oppressed or still being affected by systemic racism? Do you not have equal rights the same way that a white person has? That's what I want to know. All right.
Agency and responsibility for the things that happen to them and their situation. But that's the whole white fragility movement that was so popular in 2020, that if you disagree with this, it's because you're not fully awake, it's because you're asleep, you're deceived, you're fragile, whatever. And that's just it's not good logic, it's not good argumentation, and it just happens to be a silly, flimsy argument too. Pertaining to the part where he said that Melissa Doherty reached out to him and apologized and was broken over it. I talked to Melissa about this privately, and I wasn't going to share her thoughts publicly because it was a private conversation. But I will say that she was very annoyed by how Eric Mason was representing their conversation. She was connected through a good friend. She thought, okay, this might be a way to reconcile. Maybe we can better understand each other. She was simply trying to do the right thing and also honor their mutual friend by having a conversation with a brother in Christ about their apparent disagreement, but how he represented it, that she was repentant, that she was broken over it, that she apologized, she says is not true. And this is not just based on our private conversation, but what she said publicly too. She did say this on X, and I just appreciated it. She said, "Hi, everyone. It appears there's been a bit of a scuttle on how the conversation with Eric Mason and I went down. Yes, we did have a conversation. I'm thankful that we had that time to talk because I felt that addressing things privately was both a respectful and biblical approach. But it seems we definitely have a different interpretation of how this conversation went. I won't be responding to any comments here. I stand by the comments I said on Conserve Malin. A person's skin color doesn't determine whether they can know truth or call out terrible and heretical theology." And
okay, so how many of y'all agree with that? With that last statement, a person's skin color doesn't determine whether they can know truth or call out terrible and heretical theology. You know, and the thing is that this is where I'm kind of disappointed. And once again, with Pastor Eric Mason, is that he's like, oh, well, yeah, she was so broken and she was repentant. And it's almost like he's kind of gaslighting a little bit. And I'm like, you know, like, is that even necessary? It's like, it's just not necessary, man. It's, you know, me personally, if I was in a situation and I had this conversation with Melissa behind the scenes and I aired out my grievances and I say, hey, this is what it is. You know, the type of person that I am, I would have said, hey, let's go ahead and do, because I think Melissa has a channel and I think that Eric Mason has a channel too. I would say, hey, let's go ahead, let's sit down, let's do maybe about a 30 minutes to an hour podcast or a live stream or whatever. And let's just try to hash some of these things out. And if she would have declined and said, no, I don't think so, maybe it's not the right time, then okay, cool. But to kind of make it seem like that one thing was said behind the scenes to where this lady has to come back and say, that's not the way it went. It's a totally different interpretation on how the conversation went. I don't know. It's just, you know, my thing is that I hate when people misrepresent an issue or a topic or even a conversation. It's like, let's just be about truth. Let's just be truthful.
And so that's what she said there. She says that she stands by her comments. So that means no, she wasn't broken over it. She didn't change, you know, her mind on that. I don't know. I won't speak for her. Maybe she would change how she said it or how it went down. I'm not sure. But what he is doing is he is trying to say that she was contrite and therefore he is right. He is using that to try to verify, validate, substantiate his perspective. I wonder if he's still feeling in the flesh and wanting to say the unwholesome things after that. I don't know. I wasn't going to say anything about all of that when I saw his response video, when I saw his post. I knew exactly who had started the controversy. I was not surprised at all when I saw him say two white women. I saw that kind of thing in 2020. Okay. And Eric Mason, by the way, he's not some far left progressive. Like I would say theologically on really important things, he's biblical. He's what I would call conservative theologically. But he is hoisted up by.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. He does hold to Reformed theology. All right. So yeah, he is. He does have a lot of conservative views, a lot of Reformed theology, but at the same time, he could be a little. I wouldn't say. I'm not gonna say left leaning, but I mean he do take a lot of leftist ideologies, and I wouldn't even say that he takes a lot of leftist ideologies. I would say that some of the things that he perpetuate are talking points that are used by the left. He takes a lot of ideologies that are rooted from people who have kind of perpetuated black racism back in the day, like, you know, almost like black supremacy. Because, you know, even when I was going through my little phase where I was a part of the black conscious, I call it the black conscious cancer movement, we had basically the same talking points. But at the same time, our talking points wasn't, well, let's focus on the white man and what he's done. It's more like we recognize what the white man has done, but now let's do for self. That was the kind of time that we was on back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It wasn't all of this, let's just complain about white people and all of this stuff. We wasn't on it like that. That's why I'm just like, this new form of black power crap, this is foreign to me. Like we was on something different. We was talking about, let's put money together and let's actually buy the block. Let's actually do something tangible. All of this complaining about the white man and, oh, did you know that the white man snatched the Bible out of our hands, rewrote it, and then gave it back to us? And, you know, I don't know. It's just a lot of just a lot of stuff that really confuses me, especially when it comes from somebody like Eric Mason, who is a very smart guy, brilliant guy. And it just amazes me how he can be so far off to the left. He could go so far down into the weeds with this whole you know, racial stuff, you know?
A lot of conservative evangelicals, a lot of mainstream conservative evangelicals, even after a lot of nonsense in 2020. And then we've got Anthony Bradley. Okay, this is when I was like, okay, I'm going to respond to this because this just kind of like kicked it off for me and like, okay, well, I'm just going to dig further into this. So Anthony Bradley, he's an author, interdisciplinary and theology studies professor. He's also a research fellow.
Now, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if I'm going to go too much more into this. I don't know. Let's finish watching some of this. I did want to cover this segment. So we're gonna see how much longer we're gonna go because I'm already around 55, almost 56 minutes. So I'm gonna let it ride just for a little bit, and maybe we can kind of end it in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We'll
at
see.
the Acton Institute. It's a nonprofit research organization. So he posted a video on X, and the text above the video, it's of Melissa and I talking on the show, the clip that I just played you. It says, two white ladies, we have to say that, two white ladies ask, why is the prosperity gospel so popular in the Black church? Okay. So his caption on this video, who is this? First of all, he knows. We've gone back and forth several times before. He says, who is this? The utter nonsense of this is unreal. How on earth can you, with a straight suburban face, so it's okay to use kind of those derogatory statements, those kinds of euphemisms for a white person. I guarantee you that if a white person said that a Black person had an urban face, oh my gosh, with a straight suburban face, Anthony Bradley, the professing Christian, says, allege that most Black churches are prosperity gospel churches. In a world of Joel Osteen, Paula White, Kenneth Copeland, Joyce Meyer, etc., please stop lying on Black churches. I didn't say most Black churches. I never said most Black churches ever, actually. And I've talked about all of those people multiple times, much more than I've talked about the Black prosperity preachers like Creflo Dollar. I don't think I've ever done an episode dedicated to him. It should be so obvious that he's a false teacher. But I've talked about the others many times. Now, again, just to give you context for who Anthony Bradley is, what kind of critiques he levels against people, just a couple weeks ago, he went after our girl, Megan Basham. Megan Basham tweeted about a director of the Presbyterian Church in America's Missions program named Erwin Ince, who had issued guidance that advised illegal immigrants on how to avoid ICE. And then he had a racially segregated event for Black worshipers only. And she called this out and said, this is not a good direction, which she's absolutely right. Anthony Bradley responded to what she said, a totally valid critique of PCA, saying Megan Basham is the personification of low IQ. Okay, whatever you think about Megan Basham, you know that's not true. Like, she's not dumb.
Okay, let me go ahead and read this tweet from this lady, Megan Basham. And this is what she said. And I want y'all to let me know, is this guy's response the right response as a professing Christian? Now, I think that this lady is, I don't know if she's a professing Christian, but let's go ahead and read the tweet. She says, Erwin Ince, director of the Presbyterian Church in America's Missions program, apologized last week for guidance that advised illegal immigrants on how to avoid ICE. Hold up. I wonder is that, now I don't know if that's a Black person. He's definitely not Black American. I wonder is this like a person who was like African or Caribbean? No, I don't know. But I don't think that that's a, I may have to look that up because I don't want to rush to judgment. I don't want to rush to judgment. And the reason why I'm saying that this person might be of a darker skin color, because let's read the rest of this tweet. It says, this week he is speaking at a racially segregated event for Black worshipers only. Is this how Christ's kingdom is supposed to work? Dividing up events by skin color. So that's why I don't know who this person is. Let's see if we can look this person up real quick. All right, hold on, let me see. Got Erwin. Yeah, looks like, okay, so it is a Black guy. All right, so this is a Black guy. And let's pull this up. What is this? RTS. What is that? What is RTS? Oh, Reformed Theological Seminary. Uh-oh. Actually, I think that they have one close to me. I think it's in Marietta. Let me see campuses. Yep, right here in Atlanta. Okay. So yeah, there is one close to me. Reformed Theological Seminary. I thought I did want to go to one. All right, so this guy Erwin Entz. So this is the guy. He's a black guy. So let's get back to the video. So this is who she's talking about. This lady Megan Bash. So he's the director of the Presbyterian Church. So apparently this guy was telling illegal immigrants how to avoid ICE. Telling people who's already breaking the law how to avoid ICE, which is the immigration, I forgot what ICE stands for. What is it? Immigration Citizen Enforcement? I don't know. But those are the people that are, y'all already know what ICE is. So you're a Christian telling people, advising people on how to continue to break the laws of the land. Now, I understand that people may have a soft spot in their heart for people who are immigrants and they may be getting deported and all of that stuff. And that's another debate for another discussion. But why would you, as a person who is a professing Christian, to tell someone to break the law? Like why would you tell people to break the law? You see what I'm saying? So that's the type of stuff that I be talking about when you start to get people who are following this whole woke church mindset. You know, I'm trying to, redeem our blackness here in America because of the wicked white man. And now you going so far off the rails that you're advising people who's already breaking the law to continue to keep breaking the law. This is how you duck and dodge the federal government, who's coming to pick you up and remove you out of the country because you've overstayed your visa and you're not even here legally as a citizen. Where's the Christianity in that? Then they had an event for black worshipers only. Now, according to that diagram that we pulled up a minute ago, within Eric Mason's book, The Woke Church, he clearly said that we should be striving towards unity. You see how contradictory this is? And you see what happens when your eyes is taken off Christ and is put on your skin color. I talk about this all the time. As human beings, we all have the same problem. Whenever I'm doing content and I'm speaking against people who claim that they're in Christ or who claim that they have God or they claim that they know God, a lot of times when I'm giving critiques of people, majority of the time, the vast majority of the time, is because people have replaced something that's in their heart that they want, their own feelings, they've replaced that. Well, they've replaced God with that. Even when I'm talking about the Roman Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox folks, they've replaced God for the church. That's what they've done. They've removed God, and now the church is where God is supposed to sit. They removed God and put icons and tradition and history and all of that stuff. It's the same. It's the same concept. Even when I was doing videos against the woke stuff inside of the churches, I was making the same arguments back in 2016, 2018. You've removed God, and now you put blackness where God is supposed to be. So much so, you have so much of an animus against another group of people by their color that you're willing to advise people to break the law. Something that you won't find that in the scripture. You're not going to find that in the text. You ain't going to find that here, to where people who came into the country illegally, where God would say, well, yeah, just because somebody comes into, comes into Israel illegally, you need to try to find a way to help them avoid the authorities in Israel so they can kind of duck and dodge them so they can continue to stay in Israel. No, God had specific boundaries and outlines for the people in Israel, for the people who came into Israel. It talks about the sojourners all the time. And they were like, the sojourners needed to do this. They wanted to stay in Israel. You needed to follow this. If you couldn't do it, cut them off. Get them out of here. It was that simple. So I guess this guy, Anthony Bradley, he responded back and he says, Megan Basham is the personification of quote unquote low IQ. This is so dumb. This is the same ignorance that asks, why is there a black church? Research shows that content like hers is a sure sign of significant father issues, bro. But I think that Allie Beth Stuckey is going to read this, but let's hear it.
Like, it doesn't matter if you disagree with her. She's obviously smart. Okay. Personification of low IQ. This is so dumb. This is the same ignorance that asks, why is there a black church? Research shows that content, listen to how below the belt this is. Research shows that content like hers is a sure sign of significant father issues. And then the next reply is a post, a picture of four books. And he says, top right, ... Well, the title of the book in the top right of the picture is The Absent Father Effect on Daughters. Father Desire, Father Wounds. Yikes. Okay, Megan Basham, I know this for a fact from what she said publicly. And I also, like, we have a friendship. We talk as well. And she doesn't have father issues. And by the way, I just want to say, if you do have father issues, like, that doesn't make you low IQ, which is basically what he said. And Anthony Bradley has done so much work on the need for fathers. And, like, I won't get into.
And see, that's the thing. And people don't understand why whenever something is happening within the black community, that when we try to keep sweeping things up under the rug, we don't really want to talk about it. And then when somebody mentions something, even sometimes when people want to offer an olive branch and say, hey, listen, I see that there's issues in the community. Is there anything that I can do? Is there anything I can do to help? Or if somebody says, well, hey, this is a problem. Let's try to fix this. And then you get an attack like, oh, well, you must have father issues. Or you must be low IQ. And this guy's supposed to be a Christian. What happened to love, the fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, meekness, self-control. All of these other virtues. What part of his response was the fruit of the Spirit? Absolutely none of it. And then we expect other people to look at us as Christians and to follow our motto, and we're supposed to be leading people to Christ, but we respond like this. But it's okay because I guess she's white.
His entire personal history, but a lot of this is just like, it's just projection, okay? But he has done good work on the need of fathers, and he's basically saying that low IQ is an indicator of not having a good relationship with your dad. So I just want to say out there, if you have suffered from fatherlessness, that does not make you dumb. That does not make you less than. That is not the reason for any mistakes that you have made. And I'm not saying Megan Basham has made mistakes.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, too, because would he apply that same logic to a lot of the fatherless people that's in the black community? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think that the black community, we have the highest fatherlessness rate. You see what I'm saying? So we got the highest rate of fatherless households. So is he going to say that, or can he apply that same logic to black people? Or is it just because she's white?
Mistakes, but that's what he's arguing here. And I just want you to know that like, God is your father. He determines your worth and he has your destiny in his hand. So don't listen to people like this who are just so hateful that they can't even see that they are contradicting their own messages that they have tried to purvey. And Russell Taylor says, he says, Dr. Bradley, you genuinely confuse me. You're one of the most insightful and encouraging voices I follow, yet sometimes these insults and disrespect belittle yourself. You're so capable of engaging with people whom you disagree in a winsome way. The insults seem out of character. I haven't really seen that winsomeness and disagreement from Anthony Bradley in a long time. Anthony Bradley did not like this very kind rebuttal. He said, you should unfollow then. He said, when I was called an inward for 7 years by people like Megan, no one came to my defense. And then he goes on and on. Really? People like Megan.
And I'm going to read the rest of this. And he says, and if you think I'm going to remain silent and be a beta when someone like her attacks my brother and my friends, you're out of your mind. You have no idea what it's like to spend your career being attacked for loving black people by white conservative, quote unquote, Christians like her. No idea. There is no way on earth I am going to let Ints experience. I don't know what he means by that. Okay. I guess that's the other guy. Okay, and no, there's no way on earth that I'm going to let Ints experience what I did. Not a chance. You don't know me. Where are you from? 2004, 2011? I don't know what that means. Okay, so hold on. He says, if you think I'm going to remain silent and be beta when someone like her attacks my brother and my friends, you're out of my mind. You're out of your mind. Okay, when I was called an N-word for 7 years by people like Megan. All right, so hold on. Now, before we y'all know we gonna get into receipts around here. We gonna get into some receipts. I'm gonna try to see if she has ever used that type of language. All right. Now, I'm not saying that even if she had used that type of language, that he's justified in saying what he was saying. All right. So let's look this lady up. All right. Let me see. Here she go. This is her right here on X. We're gonna search them tweets. Let's see if she ever used the N-word. All right. So the N-word didn't pop up with the hard R. So that one didn't pop up. Okay, so with the A on the end, that one didn't pop up. All right. So now I don't know if he is saying that she did it or was it other people kind of like with the same mindset, what he's trying to allude to, that it seems like the people with her same mindset called him the N-word. Now, regardless, as Christians, our response has to be different. There's still no excuse for him saying what he said and doing what he did. There's no excuse for that. Because what did Jesus teach us? And we learned this before we even started reading the Bible when we used to go to church. You turn the other cheek. Isn't that what Jesus said? Jesus said that if a person strikes you on the cheek, what do? You give them the other cheek to strike that one as well. So that totally goes against what the Bible commands us to do. Let's see if we can listen to a couple more minutes of this.
Because she's a conservative Christian, so she didn't do it. But people like her called you that, and therefore you have to say that she has daddy issues because she said something that you disagree with? Okay, so this is who this person is. And by the way, I am talking about someone who is a professing Christian, who has been platformed by Christians, even conservative Christians, for his work. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who used to be like on Fox News talking about like the Black community and the need for fathers and all of that. So I'm not sure totally what happened. He also told Samuel Say, another guest I've had on the show, whose writings I really appreciate and have shared many times. Samuel Say is from Ghana, by the way. Anthony Bradley said to Samuel Say, this is what you say when you're not a part of the Black community as a non-Black person and know nothing the history of our churches and origins. I guess that's a typo. So he's non-Black. Samuel Say is non-Black, who is from Ghana, who is literally actually African. Okay, so that's...
All right, now people gonna have beef with that because people gonna be talking about hashtag FBA, and that could be another topic, for discussion. And these are kind of like some of those, I would say, Tariq Nasheed talking points what Anthony Bradley is trying to allude to. He said, "This is what you say when you're not a part of the Black community as a non-Black person and know nothing the history of our churches and their origins." So Samuel Say responds, "So let me get this straight. You're saying I'm not Black and I'm not a part of the Black community because I don't agree with you." Now, what Anthony is trying to allude to is that as Black people in this country, our history is a little more distinct from people who are immigrants. Let's just put it out on the table. Let's put it out on the table. Me as a Black American who has parents that were born and raised in the South, grandparents born and raised in the South, great grandparents who were born and raised in the South, and they talk about how they talk to their grandparents and great grandparents about slavery and how some of their great grandparents and grandparents were born into slavery and they ended up coming out of slavery as children or young adults, and then they had children, and then they had plots of land, and then they raised generation after generation. So that's a lot different from a person who may have come from a country maybe a couple of generations ago, and now they're here, and their experience as a Black person, um like witnessing discrimination because of the color of their skin, things of that nature. So our experiences kind of overlap, but as Black Americans, we see things a little differently because our history is a little more deeply rooted into um into the American soil. Because when we talk about like segregation, you're talking about like Jim Crow laws and all of that stuff. Like we have parents and grandparents who went through that stuff. You see what I'm saying? So by the time the civil rights movement and all of that stuff was kind of like ratified and codified, and bills and stuff were being signed, by the end of 1968, you started to see more and more immigrants come in. And it's kind of different when you got grandparents and great grandparents who lived in this country during a time when they were discriminated against for, based on the color of their skin. And they went through stuff because the laws had said that you, as a Black person, you can't own dogs, you can't own guns, you can only stay in certain areas. A white person's word is um, more valuable than yours. Their word holds a little bit more weight than yours. You see what I'm saying? And when hearing these stories generation after generation after generation, it's a little bit different from someone who has only been in the country, who's maybe a second or first generation person who immigrated here to America. So that's what Anthony Bradley is trying to allude to. But if we're supposed to be brothers in the faith, this is why this right here, I got to keep bringing this up. This right here has to supersede all of our experiences, because that points to the issue of the heart. So the experiences and the things that we go through is things that have been permeated from the wicked hearts of men, or the unregenerate hearts of men. And yes, there are there are those who do claim Christian and who have claimed Christian who've done some wicked things in the name of the Lord. But how do we know if that person was truly walking with the Lord? Again, by his word. We examine everything through this. And this is why, back to Allie Beth Stuckey's point, if we can look at the evils, all of the wicked things that have been done by white people, let's just say white people, Jim Crow, slavery, all of that stuff, the Klan, if we're able to say that those things were wrong, although those people call themselves Christian, that doesn't give Black people a pass to now do something or have the same ideologies and dispute the same garbage that those people did we don't get a pass because they did it. Now we get to do it and we get to pay them back. Because it's the same thing that the Hebrew Israelites, I mean, they say that. They said, we're going to pay all of the white people back for all of the stuff that they did to us. You see what I'm saying? And what's so crazy is that, especially when I'm listening to some of these Hebrew Israelites who are like African, like their people never went through slavery. And they are just like, yes, one day, we are going to get our revenge on the white men for putting us in slavery. And I'm like, bro, you're from like Liberia. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about? It's another topic for another discussion. But I'm just going to go ahead and end it right there because we're already like an hour and 20 minutes. And like I said, I want to stay between an hour and a half and an hour and a half. So, but yeah, if you guys want to go and check out this video from Allie Beth Stuckey, her channel, and I'm actually going to have her tagged in the not just the description, but the title. I'm gonna have her tagged in the title, so you guys can go to her channel. But yeah, it's just Allie Beth Stuckey. All right, and she did that video about 3 days ago, and you'll see the thumbnail. You can click on that. You can watch the whole video in its entirety. All right. So, but yeah, my final thoughts on this is that no matter who you are, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, we have to have a different response when we're preaching the gospel. It's okay for us to see the errors that our brothers and sisters are steeped in. And it's, I mean, we could call it out. It's okay for us to call it out because we're not trying to call it out because we just want to have something to critique and somebody to critique. But no, it's like we got to call this stuff out because this is definitely affecting a person's salvation. If you think about the responses that we've seen, and I know people can be like, well, those are just kind of like some little one-off responses, and you didn't read the whole thread, and I'm pretty sure if you read the whole thread, you will see why these people responded that way. Regardless, Christians are not supposed to be responding that way at all, period. I done had some people say some wicked and nasty stuff to me, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some people saying some wicked and nasty stuff to me in the comments, and probably even on the chat. But except I already know that, some of my mods with them wrenches, they'll be on top of that. They'll take care of that quick. But the thing is that although I got people who will say some wicked and nasty things to me, I don't even respond to a lot of that stuff. I really don't. Because I'm like, I'd rather not respond to it than to engage you, get into my flesh, and basically have that person to prove their point. Like, oh, well, see, look, this guy claims to be a Christian, and now look how he's acting. And I end up killing my witness to other people that may be watching. So when I do stuff like this, I'm not doing this to convince the ops. I'm doing this because I want to be able to show people who are watching, this is how we think as Christians, and this is how we respond. This is how we respond, that we are supposed to respond as Christians. We're not here to try to change the culture and to try to make people who are in opposition to us, to make them see things our way. It's like, no, I'm going to continue to keep preaching the gospel because I like I tell you guys all the time, I'll do videos like this and sometimes I'll forget about it. And somebody will send me a message or somebody will comment on the video and say, man, I'm so glad that you did that video because I was thinking like this and I saw your video and it just totally changed my perception. And now it just set me on a different trajectory. I still get messages from some of these videos that I've done years ago that I forgot about. And people are just like, you know what? Amen. I'm glad that you did this because now you done brought a totally different perspective to the argument. And that's what we are about. I want to point people back to Christ. I'm not pointing people back to myself. That's what I'm about. And I know people get upset with me because I have a totally different take on a lot of people's ideas, issues, ideologies, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, it's like I said, I want to point people back to Christ. I don't want to point people back to me and my lofty arguments and all that stuff, because none of that stuff matters. The only thing that is done for Christ will last. And just like Christ said, he says, you're going to be persecuted for my name's sake. You know, even Peter said, 2 Peter says, man, what is it? 2 Peter 4, starting around verse 16. Or it was around like verse 14. And he says, don't be surprised when the fiery trials are happening to you, like something foreign is happening. Like, why is all of this happening to me? I'm a Christian. I thought that everything was going to be good. It's like, no, expect that. As a Christian, expect that. Because you live in a world. And this world is under the control of Satan at the moment. But we got to stand firm, and we got to continue to represent him correctly. Not get into our flesh, not get out of character. And see, a lot of times when you choose to not respond to people, or even when you respond to people in a respectful manner, even when they disrespect you, I've had it happen to me. People will be like, you know what, man, I used to hate you. Man, I used to troll you in the comments. Somebody hit me up not too long ago. I think they sent me an email, and they were like, yeah, this is such and such. And I was like, oh, okay, grace and peace. And it was like, you don't remember me, do you? I was like, no. And the guy says, yeah, man, I used to troll your channel. I used to do this, that, and the third. And I said, and he was just like, man, I just want to apologize. And I said, to be honest, I don't even remember that. I said, I've drawn a complete blank. But I said, but I do appreciate your apology. And we chopped it up for a little bit, and that was it. And one of the things that he said, he was like, you know what? You never really got out of character with me. He said, there was times where you probably could have gotten out of character, but you never did. And he said, I want to let you know I respect you for that. So, you know, that's the power of Christ. And I ended with, you know, all glory goes to God, because it's not me, it's him. It's him. It has nothing to do with me, because I know how Alton is in the flesh. That's why I'm like, Lord, I don't want to go back to that Alton. So you need to help me suppress him and help me follow you, you know? And that's what we're supposed to be striving towards as Christians. And, you know, but seriously, pray for Pastor Eric Mason and a lot of those guys who are just really, really steeped into a lot of this racial stuff. You know, guys like Damon Richardson. And a lot of times I don't like calling out names, but you know, sometimes this is a serious issue that we have to deal with. You know, pray for those guys, because we don't know what they went through back in the day that may still have them traumatized. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it can be so easy to just say, oh, this person said this and they did that, and now we got to rebuke them. It's like, no, let's, just like I said earlier, let's try to look at things from both sides. You know, let's try to have a conversation with some of these people, you know, if they're willing to, and then just try to be sympathetic, you know, and let's continue to pray for people. I think we need prayer more nowadays than ever. I mean, we're not going to change it with philosophy and vain arguments and lofty arguments. The only thing that's going to change people's hearts is this. That is what changed me. This right here is what changed me. This word. It wasn't, you know, my intellect and me being able to, you know, have these better arguments and listening to all of these apologists. And no, it was the word of God. It was the word of God. But listen, man, thank y'all for showing up to the morning show. I almost had an hour and a half. But listen, y'all already know, like this video, rate it, share it, subscribe, hit that notifications bell, so whenever I get ready to have morning shows like this, you guys are catching on time. And whenever I upload videos, shorts, all of those things, you know, if you like my content and you really want to see it and you really want to support it, hit that notifications bell so you'll be able to see all of that stuff as soon as I drop it. And listen, with that, y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time, Lord willing. Peace.